I think the most important thing to remember is that challenging behaviors mean very different things to different people, and the quality of life of the individual with autism is the most important thing to consider. And when there are behaviors that are getting in the way of them getting access to the community, to things in life that would be meaningful to them, that get in the way of family life, and things that just in general people are not going to tolerate happening in certain settings are the most important things to address when you're talking about challenging behaviors.
What's the most important thing to know about challenging behaviors?
The most important thing to know about behavior in general is that we first need to start out figuring out what the function of that behavior is, because if we don't know what the function of that behavior is, we're not able to replace it for the individual that's exhibiting that behavior in a more appropriate way. We try not to focus on just getting rid of behaviors, because if we do that, typically an individual will replace that behavior with something else that's maladaptive, as opposed to something that can be used as a coping strategy so that that behavior doesn't need to happen anymore.
What's important to know about aggressive or self-injurious behaviors?
Aggressive and self-injurious behaviors are not necessarily innate characteristics of an individual with autism. Instead, it's born from frustration for the most part, and those are behaviors you and I could exhibit as well if we came into contact with such frustration. So a really simple example of that would be an individual that we were working with who was around 8 years old, was exhibiting some aggressive behavior. He was biting his teachers, he was becoming more aggressive, and it was something that was not characteristic of that individual. So we wanted to rule out anything that might have been medical, any discomfort, and unfortunately it took us a little bit longer than I would like to admit to figure it out, but we realized that his shoes were too tight. And once we were able to fix that, that aggressive and self-injurious behavior diminished. Now, if we had let that go on for a long period of time, there is the possibility that once we even changed his shoes, now those behaviors would have just been part of his repertoire and a little bit more difficult to address, although we still would have been able to intervene.